The young man turned eagerly. He was tall, with a noticeable elegance and distinction, and the face which he showed to Hanaud was, in spite of its agitation, remarkably handsome. "I am very glad," he said. "You are not an official of this country. You can advise without yourself taking action, if you'll be so good." Hanaud frowned. He bent his eyes uncompromisingly upon Carradine. "What does that mean?" he asked, with a note of sternness in his voice. "It means that I must tell someone," Carradine burst out in quivering tones. "That I don't know what to do. I'm in a difficulty too big for me. That's the truth." Hanaud looked at the young man keenly. It seemed to Ricardo that he took in every excited gesture, every twitching feature, in one comprehensive glance. Then he said in a friendlier voice, "Sit down and tell me." And he himself drew up a chair to the table. "I was at the Semiramis last night," said Carradine, naming one of the great hotels upon the embankment. "There was a fancy dress ball." All this happened, by the way, in those far-off days before the war, nearly, in fact, 3 years ago today, when London, flinging aside its reticence, its shy self-consciousness, had become a city of carnivals and masquerades, rivaling its neighbours on the continent in the spirit of its gaiety, and exceeding them by its stupendous luxury. "I went by the merest chance. My rooms are in the Adelphi Terrace." "There?" cried Mr. Ricardo in surprise, and Hanaud lifted a hand to check his interruptions. "Yes," continued Carradine. "The night was warm, the music floated through my open windows and stirred old memories. I happened to have a ticket. I went." Carradine drew up a chair opposite to Hanaud and, seating himself, told, with many nervous starts and in troubled tones, a story which, to Mr. Ricardo's thinking, was as fabulous as any out of the Arabian Nights. "I had a ticket," he began, "but no domino. I was consequently stopped by an attendant in the lounge at the top of the staircase leading down to the ballroom. 'You can hire a domino in the cloakroom, Mr. Carradine,' he said to me. I had already begun to regret the impulse which had brought me, and I welcomed the excuse with which the absence of a costume provided me. I was indeed turning back to the door, when a girl, who had at that moment run down from the stairs of the hotel into the lounge, cried gaily, 'That's not necessary,' and at the same moment she flung to me a long scarlet cloak which she had been wearing over her own dress. She was young, fair, rather tall, slim, and very pretty. Her hair was drawn back from her face with a ribbon, and rippled down her shoulders in heavy curls, and she was dressed in a satin coat and knee-breeches of pale green and gold, with a white waistcoat and silk stockings and scarlet heels to her satin shoes. She was as straight-limbed as a boy, and exquisite like a figure in Dresden china. I caught the cloak and turned to thank her, but she did not wait. With a laugh she ran down the stairs, a supple and shining figure, and was lost in the throng at the doorway of the ballroom. I was stirred by the prospect of an adventure.